Hello and welcome to today's forum on Hong Kong and Great Bay Area, Internationalization and Integration. This is the first episode of our discussion of Hong Kong and GBA. The event is organized by CGTN think tank and supported by Hong Kong Polytechnic University. I'm Xu Qinduo. We are in Shenzhen. Well, the Great Bay Area, which includes Hong Kong, Macau, and 9 cities from the mainland, represents one of the most open and also economically vibrant regions in the country. The initiative breaks the new ground for the opening up on all fronts of this nation. And the plan gives each city great opportunities to fully leverage their advantage to build this region into a technology powerhouse. And so how the region can continue to strengthen their integration and how the GBA can contribute to China's new ideas on the dual circulation economic policies, and what role Hong Kong will play in the future. And today we are honored to be joined by a group of distinguished guests, both online and on-site. And they are in the studio, guests including Ai Chun-ying, Presidential Chair Professor, Chinese University of Hong Kong, and Zhao Xiaobin, Professor and Associate Dean, DHSS, at Beijing Normal University, Hong Kong Baptist University, United International College, and former Director of International Center of China Development Studies, University of Hong Kong, and Leslie Masdorf, Vice President, New Development Bank, and Martin Moeller, Chairman, Swiss Chinese Chamber of Commerce. Be seated. And joining us online are Hong Wei-min, Principal Liaison Officer for Hong Kong, Shenzhen Qianhai Authority, and Andrew Lam, SBS, FRSA, International and Independent China Strategist, Lu Haitian, Director of Chinese Mainland Affairs Office, Professor in Law and Finance, School of Accounting and Finance, Hong Kong Polytechnic University, and Francis Luo, Professor Emeritus, Department of Economics, Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. And a warm welcome to our audience, both online and on-site. Thank you. So when we talk about Bay Area, what occurs to our mind is like New York Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, Tokyo Bay Area. They have their own strength. For example, New York, that's finance. San Francisco, technology, and the Toronto Bay Area, that's manufacturing. What about the Bay Area here, Hong Kong, Shenzhen, Guangzhou, Macau? So, Professor?
Well, it's a combination of all those three. Because Hong Kong is a financial center, world financial center, and Shenzhen is one of the financial centers in mainland China. Mm-hmm. And also a manufacturing center and innovation center.
So, Leslie, so if you compare this, Greater Bay Area here in China to the Bay Area, established Bay Area, like in New York, in San Francisco and Tokyo, how do you compare them? What are the strengths and the weakness, probably, of this Bay Area?
I would say that the foundations to establish an integrated Greater Bay Area here in southern China has been there for a while. What is required now is to leverage off the complementarities and the strengths of each of these, as the professor have just highlighted. Mm-hmm. The weaknesses reside, I think, in the fact that you have different regulatory regimes. You, in fact, have two different, one country, two systems, if you like. So there's still a process of harmonization of rules, laws, and procedures that needs to be effected in order for the full potential of the Greater Bay to be realized.
Mm-hmm. Let's welcome Martin here. What do you see the 4 cities? They are very different, but of course they have their own similarities. But now they are going to integrate into one region.
And for me, it's not just 4 cities. Don't forget Foshan and Dongguan. Dongguan, for example, has the population of my home country, Switzerland, and 8.5 million people, more or less. Extremely great production power. So I think each city has its strength, its special characteristics, and together with the financial abilities of Hong Kong, it will be a very powerful Bay Area.
Mm-hmm. Professor Zhao over there, you see here, as mentioned earlier by Leslie, you have, you have your strength, but you have your differences. The differences, I mean, if you don't overcome those differences, that could be a problem. For example, you have different regulatory bodies, you have different practices in their business doing, and also you have different currencies, for example, Macau, Hong Kong, and here in Shenzhen. How do you overcome those differences and then somehow make them become your strength?
Yes, that is the key part, the difference, the speciality due to those one country, two systems, three custom zones, and then even three political systems. In fact, Hong Kong, Macau also different. Yes, very special. So it is a big issue and also challenging for this region. On the one hand, we see, wow, this is a very diversified and a lot speciality, a lot comparative advantage among them. But on the other hand, behind this scenario, we will find, wow, in fact, a lot of things not workable, a lot of things. Particularly, we talk about finance, economic integration, different system, different model of business, So that's why we need to find a way to harmonize that. That's why integration to this region is really meaningful. But this could be opportunity and also challenging.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You have this Great Bay Area. That's one of the many initiatives developed by China. And of course, we have earlier Belt and Road Initiative. And what's the relationship between the Great Bay Area and this Belt and Road Initiative? And somehow, how do they interact with each other?
Thanks. I would start off by saying that it's also important to locate the Greater Bay Area at this time in the context of the broader policy reform within China. The important point to make here is that China, as you know, has come through a period, 40 years of reform and opening up. It's been a very successful period during which time China's economy globalized very successfully. However, during this period, financial markets and capital markets remained substantially closed. Mm-hmm. What the Greater Bay Area represents is a deepening of this reform process towards greater opening up and reform. Belt and Road is about also regional integration. I think that especially at this time, where the world is looking inward as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has caused a global recession unlike we've seen in probably 100 years. During periods of economic distress like we have now, countries typically look inward, they typically tend to be protectionist. Fortunately now, we have an environment where policymakers, and certainly a few days ago, a very strategic breakthrough happened where the 15 nations in Asia Pacific signed a regional free trade agreement. What that symbolizes is that the world is looking towards more regional cooperation, more free trade, looking at more opening up as part of the solutions, as opposed to looking inward, as opposed to becoming more protectionist. So in short, I would say that the Greater Bay Area, together with the Belt and Road Initiative, they all complement each other because they deepen regional cooperation, more integration, more free trade, more easy movement of people, goods and services.
Mm-hmm. Well, Professor Zhao, you see here, of course, you have on one hand the Great Bay Area integration, and actually, as I mentioned, is RCEP or RCEP,
yeah.
Regional Comprehensive Economic Cooperation, just signed by 15 countries. Very big impact. This free trade agreement. It's all about integration. Do you see something similar, like at least in Asia Pacific, you do see the trend of being integrated, of course, to create this synergy effect? Everybody benefits from this integration.
Let me add something to the Great Bay Area and the One Road, Belt and Road Initiative. These two initiatives, established for different reasons. And for the Greater Bay Area, because we want to integrate, all these cities. Obviously, they are all doing very well. And we just want to integrate so that we can exploit specialization and scale economy. That's what this one is about. But the Road and the Belt was established at the time we had excess capacity in manufacturing. We were looking for an overseas market. And that initially, when they started that, and now it turned out after this pandemic, and given that in the future that this is international supply chain thing, and not because of political pressure, but also economical reason, that we were going to see some local small supply chain. I think the Belt and the Road initiative could facilitate some of the local supply chains. The RUCP thing is another one that we may actually form. In addition to the main supply chain, we may actually have local economy that are connected. Yeah. And the question whether we're going to see a lot of more integration going forward is right now it's not very promising because this nationalism and anti-internationalism is pretty strong in the U.S. and also the European countries. And perhaps maybe the Southeast Asian countries, and they are actually at this time, for multinationalism and internationalization. And so maybe Biden came to power, to the office, that can change a little bit. He may rejoin the TPP. And with that, and the U.S. can play an active role facilitating more integration, not international scale, but more like a regional scale.
Well, let me bring in Mr. Lu Haitian. Since you are from, obviously based in the Chinese mainland, and I'm thinking about, the free trade agreement or the integration efforts. Ultimately, our purpose is to benefit the development of individual companies, firms, and ultimately individual people, citizens at different regions. So what do you make of this Greater Bay Area in terms of creating opportunities for investors, for companies, both inside China and outside China, let's say?
Okay, thank you. So I think that the ultimate purpose for any economic integration is lower and lower tariffs and freer movement of the resources. So the GBA is a typical example. To me, the GBA has all the success factors. It has complementarity among its cities. That is the interdependence of each city on each other. So together, the GBA has a diversified industrial chain. It has the manufacturing, R&D, finance, world-class research universities, and a large enough domestic market to back it up. So it has every reason to take off.
Yeah, well, today we are talking about, of course, this Greater Bay Area and Hong Kong, how Hong Kong can benefit or can contribute to the integration of this Bay Area. So Martin, also I want to get you involved here. It's not only about companies from Hong Kong or from this mainland area. It's also about investors from overseas, like Switzerland. So what opportunities do you see for the business group you represent, for example?
We have two different chambers of commerce, one in mainland and one in Hong Kong. And number of members in Hong Kong is only about half of the number of members in mainland China. So you can see there is still a lot of potential. Of course, Switzerland is pretty strong in finance, and so Hong Kong is the right place to be. But we're also very strong in manufacturing, in development of new technologies and solutions. So I think it's an excellent platform to be, or if companies are not here, I think they will, in short time, consider to move here. The total population of the Great Bay Area is as big as the biggest European country, so it's a country, a huge market by its own.
Francis Law here, you know that when we talk about compare the cities in the region, 11 of them, the Hong Kong is probably the most global one, right? And so I'm thinking of like in what way Hong Kong may help this Great Bay Area to get more internationalized, because you know one of the theme we are talking about, internationalization.
The young people of Hong Kong are not really that international. I don't think that they know the world that much. And my impression is that a lot of the young people in the mainland, and especially those in the Greater Bay Area, could know other parts of the world quite well. But on the other hand, well, historically, Hong Kong has already built up a very international financial center. And if we want the international part of Hong Kong to help, it will be important to utilize that kind of networking for the, well, in the financial services. And of course, Hong Kong is one of the world's biggest shipping hub or transportation, shipping or transportation hub. Hong Kong used to have the world's largest container terminal. This is no longer the largest. I think it may be the number 5 or number 6 now. I don't really remember. But this kind of international trade in Hong Kong has always been very important. So Hong Kong has all these kind of connections. So it is very useful for the Greater Bay Area to make use of these existing connections. But if you look at the future, it will be very important to meet the challenge that, or to meet the challenge of training Hong Kong young people to have a more international outlook. If we cannot do that, then in the future, I don't think that we can really count Hong Kong as a very international place.
So Francis, you mentioned about, of course, basically you're comparing Hong Kong with the cities in the mainland, for example. Can you talk more about, you mentioned about basically, the sense of crisis in Hong Kong, like, oh, we are losing our advantages comparing to probably like Shenzhen, like Guangzhou or Shanghai, for example, financially. So is that a sense like felt by common people on the street, or how do you describe that?
Well, if you look at, say, the average IQ of the Hong Kong people, I don't think that it's really that low, but that may not help too much. Well, now, you have to see that, well, the most talented Hong Kong young people will go into the medical sciences. They become doctors, and some of them become lawyers. Well, Hong Kong right now actually needs 2 legs to walk. One is the financials, one will be financial services, and in this regard, Hong Kong is doing very well. Still, I believe that it will continue to do well, but it is not sufficient in order to maintain Hong Kong as some kind of international hub. I think that in this another leg, and that is high-tech innovation. But the universities in Hong Kong are doing very well in this regard. They can compete quite well with other leading universities in the world in terms of scientific research. However, most of the research results cannot really be commercialized, and that would need a very big team of people who have the technological capability and who also have some kind of a global and national outlook. And Hong Kong young people right now is very lacking in this regard.
Mm-hmm. Well, Professor Zhou, If you look at Hong Kong, financially in particular, this is a very important region for, say, the small companies, the startups from the mainland to get listed, to go public. And of course, one of the major choice is Hong Kong stock market. So, like in that sense, how important is the Hong Kong financially to the integration of this Greater Bay Area?
Hong Kong serve this financial hub for the whole country. Will increasingly important. But at this moment, I just a little bit follow up the Professor Francis topic. What business norm, what business model we would like to integrate this region? So Hong Kong obviously doing quite well in that regard. The business model, the system, regulatory and supervision, and then financial service. So what kind of the norm, what kind of the business model, what kind of the system, particularly in the business part, in the business financial service business model. So because ambiguity in this financial, the whole integration, ambiguity there, and then we more emphasize mainland China, our confidence in our system and policy, something like that, and then we underestimated Hong Kong. That is the key problem. And I believe we need to change that. We need to make sure Hong Kong can play his original role, and Hong Kong still can able to carry his trademark, not change it. Then the whole region in this area, business finance, will integrate with the Hong Kong, I would like to say Hong Kong system, Hong Kong legal system, financial system. Then this area really great, I believe, really great, one of the best in the world. Okay, thank you.
Just a good point to talk about, this potential, not only the potential for development, but also there are potential issues we needed to overcome, we need to deal with. It reminds me of, last year's unrest, social unrest in Hong Kong. So Leslie, I'm wondering, whether people's impression or people's choice of investment, for example, like in Hong Kong, does that kind of social unrest have any impact in their decision-making internationally concerning Hong Kong?
I think it's important to highlight that the market infrastructure, the deep support system in terms of finance, in terms of accounting standards, legal, regulatory oversight, and so on, is very deep and well established in Hong Kong. I do not believe that the incidence of social unrest, for example, which occurred, has dented Hong Kong as a financial hub and hub of capital markets here in Asia. Because building up that kind of infrastructure takes years, if not decades, right? And it is very difficult to build it overnight. So Hong Kong, I think, will preserve for a very long time those elements. I think it's also important to highlight that Hong Kong plays a very critical role in the development of capital markets in mainland China. I'll give you one example. The Chinese bond market has a partnership, a connection with Hong Kong, which is called Hong Kong Connect, which enables foreign institutions to tap into the Chinese bond market using the Hong Kong regulatory and market infrastructure. So it is a simpler, easier, it's also in English, so the Western European investors and others who are more comfortable with the English language would be able to buy bonds using the market infrastructure there. So the importance of Hong Kong is not just for the Greater Bay, it plays a critical role in the development of financial and capital markets opening up in the rest of China.
In the entire nation, probably. Professor Zhao, you are nodding your head, so anything to add?
But I do agree with the previous guest that and each of these major cities in the Greater Bay Area, they are all unique in themselves, and they have their own comparative advantage. The financial sector certainly is a comparative advantage for Hong Kong, particularly international finance. Hong Kong lost manufacturing long time ago, and I don't think they are considered to be innovation center. And this is where the Shenzhen is good at. Shenzhen is the innovation hub, is the China's Silicon Valley. And Shenzhen also is in high-tech manufacturing. So, so that's the Shenzhen's comparative advantage. So to develop the Greater Bay Areas, that it does not mean everybody's doing everything, and Hong Kong should do whatever they are doing well. As Leslie pointed out, I mean, there's no way that either Shanghai or Shenzhen can replace Hong Kong in the near future in terms of financial center. But I don't think that Hong Kong can mimic what Shenzhen is doing in innovations. And Hong Kong has another advantage, is the higher education. And Hong Kong can really help the Greater Bay Areas. And the healthcare industry, I think it's another area that Hong Kong enjoy advantage. But I do agree with Leslie, and Hong Kong actually play a bigger role beyond the Great Bay Area in China, bringing the international capital, but also provide the platform for some small and medium-sized companies, not just from China, but also from the Southeast Asia and other Asian countries. And I do see, I'm hopeful, I'm very hopeful that Hong Kong will be a very important part of the economy here. But some other side of the economy, they lost their comparative advantage. They're not going to get it back, just like the United States. They lost some of the manufacturing. No matter how hard they try, they're not going to get it back. I hope the political turmoil is short term, and if it's short term, there won't have any impact on their financial service sectors.
Well, let's bring in Mr. Hong Wei-min here. If you look at Hong Kong and the mainland, based in Shenzhen here, China introduces a new plan. We call it, dual circulation economic plan. So, in what way Hong Kong also can contribute actually to the development of the new economic plan for the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, the dual circulation, I mean, obviously there's two circulation. The international one, Hong Kong used to play a very important role and continue to play that, both in the finance side as well as trade and professional services. But there's one more role, which is talent. As you know, with all the political turmoil between the U.S. and China, there will be a growing number of Asian scientists and scholars who does not want to live in America anymore. And Hong Kong seems to be the best place for them to, where the environment, the tax regime, and all the living conditions is quite comparable compared to the West. And so there is an attraction for these talents to come over to Hong Kong. At the same time, all those graduate students, PhD students who originally want to go to the U.S. to study for a PhD, for example, for a biochem, now they cannot get a visa. They can come to Hong Kong. So that will actually help to build up in Hong Kong, which will serve back the mainland as well as the GBA area. If you look at the dual circulation, one very important thing is we need to increase value and quality of our internal consumption. Okay, if our circulation is just based on Taobao, that doesn't work. Okay, we need better things like that. And Hong Kong, we are proud of our talents of designers and advertisement agents, people who work at culture, design, and branding. They used to help the international brands to do their brands. Now, these people can in turn help our mainland brands and mainland products to do their branding. I think this is very important, is Hong Kong to regain its position in terms of internal circulation, provide this kind of added value to our mainland counterparts. Furthermore, will be the integration of GBA, and where we are building a innovation and technology. As I mentioned previously, the talent pool, but also the fundamental research. Hong Kong is the only city in the world has 4 universities that top 50. Okay, no other cities in the world have that. So with our good universities and fundamental research, if it helps and integrate with the industry base that is in the Guangdong part of GBA. It can really do a good supply chain of innovative products and new technology. And we can see even the likes of Huawei and other companies, they have been collaborating with some of the universities in Hong Kong. In the future, we need to encourage more of that. We have to encourage more of the Hong Kong universities to work with industries in Guangdong to create new technologies as well as putting these technologies into products and services.
Mm-hmm. Well, Angela, just following what had been said by Mr. Hong here, when it comes to the people, like people from Hong Kong, in particular young people from Hong Kong, what opportunities by this dual circulation economic policies, that may provide for people from Hong Kong, like in the mainland?
There's a huge problem with this kind of mindset of the younger generation of Hong Kong people. It's not only the political kind of barrier, but it's the abilities to compete in the Great Bay Area, understanding of businesses on the mainland as distinct from those in Hong Kong. So there's a lot of IPOs, very big Chinese IPOs, increasingly taking advantage of Hong Kong's security market. I think Hong Kong needs to overcome these barriers in terms of the ability of young people, but also have the improved access to the Greater Bay Area.
So, Professor Zhao here, we have like the figure Shenzhen, created a startup zone that provides young entrepreneurs with a free office up to 6 to 18 months. But, different quarantine regulations, which is probably temporary, and of course problems with the passage along the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau bridge over there. People are talking about this free movement of goods and people. Seems it's a goal yet to be achieved, to be realized.
Yeah, it's very important to have to build up the connection so that the people and the goods move freely and across different cities. And that's the only way that you can allow the different city to specialize and to take advantage of the scale economy. And well, right now that even though with that bridge, there's a famous bridge, still, I guess there's still not much traffic going on there. On how to solve that, I think the central government has come up with a great better idea, and even integrate the cities like Guangzhou or Shenzhen, nearby cities, and it's not that easy too, and because the local government, they protect their own interests. But there's only one way that in order for the Greater Bay Area and also other area to develop further, that we must have specialization so that we can allocate efficiency more efficiently. I'll give you an example that we know that Guangzhou is, that's the major sector is automobile manufacturing. And they're doing well, so let them do that. And let the other second tier or third tier city to play a service or support role by providing the parts and service the other side of things. Let Hong Kong play the financial capital role, that's what they're good at. And let Shenzhen innovate and focus on the high-end manufacturing with support from Huizhou and Dongguan. And how to do that, I think the central government maybe need to appoint a czar or somebody with the authority that to push through the thing. But obviously there's need on all sides. Yeah, I think to talking about other Bay Area like San Francisco and Tokyo or New York, I think the Great Bay Area can really learn from Yangtze Delta areas. And all other cities, if you look at that they support Shanghai. They really make Shanghai as the center. Yeah. But here, we may have more than 2 centers. Hong Kong wants to be the center, and Shenzhen also wants to be the center. And I believe Guangzhou also wants to be the center. You can't do that.
Professor Luo, so ambiguity, so we need some clarity?
Now, Hong Kong is a world-class financial center, international financial center. Shenzhen is a world-class innovation center, and Dongguan is a world-class manufacturing center, and Guangzhou is a world-class commercial center, and Macau is a world-class entertainment center. So we have all these elements which are potentially complementary to each other. So, well, is it possible that each city will just specialize on in just one thing? For example, can Hong Kong just specialize in financial services? Well, certainly, I'm quite confident of the future of the financial center in Hong Kong. I don't worry too much about it. However, we have to recognize that the financial services only contributes to about 18 or 19% of the GDP of Hong Kong. And in terms of employment, it's around 10% or even less of the total employment in Hong Kong. So in that sense, even though I strongly advocate that Hong Kong should continue to strengthen its financial center, well, I would also say that we need another leg to walk. And the obvious thing that Hong Kong has now is higher education. I think Professor Ai Chen-Yong also mentioned about that, and I totally agree with this point. And during the last few years, there has been something new happening, and essentially most of the universities in Hong Kong have already built up campuses in the Greater Bay Area, or perhaps some of them have been planning to institute new campuses.
You know, we have the differences between the cities. That's exactly the reason why we need to cooperate with each other, because we are different.
Right. And, well, if we are identical and there's no need to integrate, and the fact that all cities, they are quite different from each other is a blessing, and that's the diversity or the variety, and the diversity or variety always is better than the homogeneity. And so I echo Professor Lewis's point. You know, when I say Hong Kong should specialize the word financial center, I don't mean they just do that. And of course, they have to do other stuff. That's their main comparative advantage comparing with the Shenzhen and Hong Kong and Guangzhou and other cities. And the reason, the fact that the different cities, they all have different comparative advantage, that's why we can actually put them together so that so that we can exploit the scale. And if each city is doing one thing, they are doing well and doing a larger scale, and that's the scale economy. And there's no point that, for example, for Shenzhen to establish the automobile sector, given that Guangzhou is doing that and doing that very well, I think they should, provide a supporting role in that regard. And and obviously Shenzhen is full of young people. They are all driven to innovate, and all those university professors, myself included, I guess the previous guest alluded to it, that we're probably good at the basic research, but we don't know how to commercialize the idea. This is where Shenzhen is very good at that. I mean, Shenzhen is competitive with the Silicon Valley. And there's a joke around, and it may not be joke, maybe the truth, that if you have an idea you want to commercialize in the United States, it takes 6 months. In Shenzhen, it takes 6 weeks.
6 weeks. And
because Shenzhen has a complete supply chain, production chain, and the collaboration between Hong Kong and Shenzhen can facilitate that. And with the idea coming from Hong Kong, and also I hope the capital also coming from Hong Kong. And look at all the rich people, the very rich people in Hong Kong, they're all real estate developers. And somehow that they don't invest in the venture capital, and they need the money. And maybe the Hong Kong capital, the rich people can do that and facilitate that the manufacturer moving up the value chain. Yeah, I think the diversity, the difference, the heterogeneity, I call it heterogeneity between the different cities is the reason why we want to integrate them. So it's also the reason that we can take advantage of the scale economy and the specialization.
Well, Leslie, you are basically representing this, big development bank, new development bank, representing this biggest developing countries. And so when you look at the development of developing countries, I mean, China is one of them, and here, the Greater Bay Area. So how do you see these differences, difficulties, and also opportunities to be integrated, but at the same time you have the challenges, and then now what are the prospects when you look at like 10 years from now, this Greater Bay Area or Hong Kong here?
One of the core mandates of the New Development Bank is to invest in infrastructure. By infrastructure, I'm referring to economic hard infrastructure like ports and roads and bridges, power stations, and so on. One of the key aspects of modern economic infrastructure is the digital economy. When I look at the Greater Bay Area, I see the potential that it represents for models to be replicated elsewhere in other BRICS countries, for example. India is also very focused on the creation of smart cities. The Prime Minister of India is in fact a custodian of a major program in India to develop 100 smart cities, a very ambitious program. Similarly, in South Africa, in Brazil, there's a recognition that the digital economy has the potential to lift and for these economies to leapfrog, to go to another stage of development and skip certain intermediate stages, as what has happened in the telecoms, as you know, where many parts of Africa, people never had landlines and they went straight to smartphones. In a similar way, what we have here in the Greater Bay Area, we can see the potential that a smart city like Shenzhen, for example, what can be done. And if we can reproduce the core infrastructure that Shenzhen has created, we can learn lessons from that, which we can then transport elsewhere. And obviously, cities are different. Each one has unique comparative advantages, as Professor just highlighted. But there are lessons that I think we can transport to other jurisdictions. What COVID-19 has done is accelerated these business models and trends towards more digitalization. And I think the opportunity here with the regional integration can enable that. Well,
just following what you have said, how do you compare this Greater Bay Area with the area, say, this Yangtze River Delta, headed by Shanghai? It's two different economic regions, very important, also probably different.
It is very different. I think that the key point, as a number of the speakers have already highlighted, is to draw on the unique strengths that each of the cities bring. China has become a hub globally for fintech, for example, and Shanghai, where I live and where the New Development Bank is based, is becoming a leading global center around fintech, together with Hangzhou, where Alibaba and financial services and some of these high-tech companies are based. But one should not see that as being in competition with the Greater Bay Area. Greater Bay Area has a unique role because of its location, because of its aviation maritime hub, the transport hub, the Macau entertainment tourism hub, the Dongguan. Each of these brings so many different elements to the equation.
Well, Martin, picking up on what Ashley has said, smart cities, digitalization in this region. From a business perspective, what opportunities do you see?
I mean, the growth potential is immense. But before that happens, I think many obstacles have to be overcome. Because, for example, compared to all the other big Bay Areas, this is the only one who has to deal with three currencies and with cross-border transactions of goods and people. So if this cannot be solved and facilitated for goods and people, then I don't see that the potential can really explode. I think the combination of all the strengths of these cities, of these areas, is good, but there's a lot of harmonization necessary before this can really boost.
To overcome some of the difficulties, challenges over there. Professor Lu Haiqian, here, like this Bay Area is expected to build into a region where we call it like a 1 hour circle, basically. Within 1 hour, you can reach Shenzhen, Guangzhou, or Hong Kong. So that will provide a lot of convenience. Besides that, of course, is about efficiency in terms of a business. And so what kind of future do you see for the local residents in Shenzhen, in Hong Kong, in Guangzhou, and also business opportunities probably?
Thank you. So yes, the one-day trip, okay, within from Hong Kong to the GBA cities is a great thing. Actually, I have many young entrepreneurial friends in Hong Kong. They have offices in Guangzhou, and then they can do the day trip. Okay? And then this also creates a lot of opportunities because remember that in the GBA area, historically, people have dense social and economic connections. And then this also creates a lot of business opportunities. For example, people are talking about the Hong Kong aged people have hospitals, welfare programs in the GBA area. Also, people talk about the mutual recognition of professional qualities such as lawyers, accountants, surveyors, and then if they are able to practice on a pilot basis in GBA, that creates a lot of business opportunities.
Well, on that note, we are concluding this panel discussion, which is fascinating, eye-opening, I would say. This is a big topic, but also when you look closer into this topic, it is very interesting. And our panel is open to our audience, both online and on-site. If you have any comments or questions, please raise your hands.
Thank you for sharing your opinions. I'm working at the intersection between the public health and the big data science. And may I have some of your opinions about how you see your roles in developing the smart, healthy cities in these unique areas?
To respond to your question, the future is a digital economy, which anything that they have to be involved with the big data. And health is one of the big areas where the AI, the data science, big data are going to play a major role. And I have not seen a concrete and commercialized product yet. But I do know there are a lot of researchers trying to develop. And let me give you an example that if you have X-ray and the doctor can look at the X-ray to try to give you an opinion and what's the problem with that. And it comes with just more than the eyeballing, but also the experience. And so things of that nature, we do need to use the past cases, particularly from the best hospital in China, and with the best experts, we try to use a machine learning or AI technique to summarize and those past experience, and that will be very useful for the rest of China. I do see a great potential in this area, and also in other areas. And actually, all applications in any other applied area, because as long as they have data, and they can apply this technique. So I do agree with Professor Lewis that that's the future. And no matter whether you major in finance, marketing, or material, or chemistry, and learn something about this machine learning technique, we're going to help you land a great job with great pay, and there's a great demand out there. And in my school, at the School of Management and Economics at the Chinese University of Hong Kong, Shenzhen, And we have the master program, and the most popular one is not finance, not accounting. The most popular a master program is data science, which is also run by my school. So that's the indication of the market, and also which reflect the demand of the market here.
The future.
The future.
Yes.
Maybe just to
Yeah,
add
Leslie,
very
please.
briefly, I mean, I would say that what COVID-19 has also underscored is how central public health is to economic development. I mean, as you know, most countries, the countries that were the most vulnerable during this crisis were the ones with the weakest public health systems. So I think an investment, greater investment in data, in ensuring also that there's equal access, because you also have a very strong digital divide in the world today. Maybe not in this region where we are now in the Greater Bay Area, but it's a large part of the world that is not connected. At the end of the day, Greater Bay Area, this economic integration we're speaking about, everything is about improving people's lives. It's about lifting living standards, and ultimately public health is at the center of that. So greater investment into and making use of the best that technology has to offer in terms of big data, to integrate that into planning of health systems is central to the success of this region.
Mm-hmm. Well, Martin, you want to add?
Yeah, I would like to add something from entrepreneur perspective and foreign entrepreneurs perspective. We talked about different systems, and especially in the medical field, but also in the banking financial field. We are eagerly waiting for further opening up of mainland China to foreign companies, that we can participate and cooperate freely, and there are still a lot of limitations. That some activities are blocked, that cannot be done in mainland. So also here there is a lot of harmonization, globalization, opening up necessary, and we look forward to see this happen and to play an active role here.
More opportunities for everybody. Thank you for joining us in the discussion of the development of Hong Kong and the Great Bay Area. And I hope you enjoyed the session as much as I did. And this is the first episode of our discussion. And to know more about Hong Kong, to know more about the challenges and the opportunities this integration process will bring to Hong Kong, we welcome you to join our next part of discussion, which comes very soon. If you want to watch the full session of the discussion, you can refer to the media platform as listed on our screen. And I'm Xu Qinzhuo. Thank you for your time. See you next time.